Hello everybody, welcome to Making It Monday, and once again we're going to have half an hour or so of joining together and doing a little bit of stitching. So hopefully you're again with me tonight. Now this is a Facebook Live, but this will be also broadcast on YouTube a little bit later, probably tomorrow. So so welcome again to Making It Monday. It's great to see you. I can see people watching, which is lovely. Just let me know if there's any problems, just tell me in the comments. So if we go back 8 weeks, you'll know now that obviously we're on week 8 and this is the last Making It Monday until the new year. Hi Abigail. And I'm just going to do a quick recap of what we've made so far. And I'm sure you'll all know by now that all of the patterns are free patterns which you can download from my website, which is lizzycurtis.com. Now I have to say that this particular week we're going to make this little mini caddy here, which is just gorgeous, and I'll get back to that in just a minute. But I'm sure you'll realise that how popular this has been, or so many people joining me now. And it's had the most downloads. We've had, since I put it on the website at midday on Saturday, we've had about 400 people download that pattern, which is lovely because it means that there should be at least 400 of you going to be either watching today or over the next few days, or catching it on YouTube, as you might well prefer to do. So we're going to talk about the tool caddy, but before we do that, let's just do a quick recap. Now, I don't know if I've got these in the right order. Now we're on week 8, and there's a few, isn't there? I don't know. You tell me, you know better than me most of the time. So all the patterns, again, I'll just reiterate, all the patterns are on my website, lizzycurtis.com, and they are free. You just need to put free in the coupon box, okay? And those people that are forgetting to do that or don't know how to do that, I've actually got to the stage where I'm not refunding anymore because it was taking up too much time. And I have to say I don't really get the money because it all goes in PayPal fees. I think well over 30 pence goes in PayPal fees, so it doesn't come to me. So just as long as you know that. But there's too many going through now for me to actually refund you. So if you do forget to put the free word, F-R-E-E, in the coupon box at checkout, you're going to pay that money. But really what you're doing is paying PayPal, not me. So I would much prefer you put free in the coupon box. But anyway. So we've got the little sort of grabby mitten thing for taking hot things out of microwave, something like that. I wouldn't use it for anything coming out of the oven, the cooker, because this one hasn't got thermolan in, so it's something that you might want to do if you're going to use it to take things out of your oven, because this is only one layer of just my regular fleece. And when I made it, it's a Facebook Live, not a YouTube. That's what I talked about that at the time. So we've done the little oven mitt. Then I think we did the scissor keeper, and I use my scissor keeper all the time. It's just over there, and that's on the website as well as a pattern. Then we did the little coin purse, which is possibly my favourite, where we used crumb quilting to actually put all the pieces of Liberty fabric together. A really nice simple design because no buttons, no poppers, no zips, nothing to cause you any problems. It's just a little tab that slips under that loop, and that was just such a lovely make. I think everybody enjoyed that. And then we had the tool tidy, or the car tidy, or the whatever you like tidy, which you'll hang on the back of a chair or maybe on a door handle, something like that. So that's there, and that's got 2 little pockets at the front. So that, again, that's another free pattern. And then the next one was the glasses case. There we go, and that's that gorgeous Japanese fabric with the foiling, the gold. Is it gold or is it silver? Silver foiling. And again, that's not too late to make that for a Christmas gift, you know, a little stocking stuffer. And then we made the mini little shopper. Look at this. This is the cutest thing ever. So again, that's another free pattern. We're on week 8, so I think this must be 6. I think, unless I've lost count. I'm not very good with numbers, so I've lost count. Anyway, little mini shopper, and of course that's just to hang on your tree, your holiday tree, or maybe it's for Easter. You know what, we're nearly getting now to where we're going to go beyond Christmas, aren't we? Let's face it. So we're probably perhaps looking at other things. I think now we should aim for Easter, because that's when we'll all have, perhaps most of us will have had our vaccinations and we might be normal again. So aim for Easter. So that's the little mini shopper. And then last week we did the little card case, which I think is adorable. I've got mine attached. It's not, instead of a button, I've got a bell, which is lovely. It does tinkle tinkle, and then there's little pockets. So I was thinking about this after the event actually, because we've got the 2 pockets here for 2 cards, 3 cards, 4 cards, and then of course we've got this little one here, and I was thinking, oh, what could we use that one for? And of course if you have a trolley and you want to put the you know, the little coin that goes in the trolley for the supermarket, I thought maybe you could put that in there. I don't know, it's just a thought. And I thought, so we obviously made that extra pocket and I never even thought about what we could do with it. So so that's last week's. And then this week of course is the little mini caddy, which is just adorable, isn't it? I love the fabric, little bees and lovely stripy little stripy trim, and it's a bit of a cheat, I have to say, the trim, and as we go through it you'll see. Now the instructions for all of these patterns are basic, okay? They're basic because they're free, and I really can't spend the time putting a lot of time into them and making them really super. A lot of my regular patterns that perhaps you'll see on the website while you're there, that some of them are 14 pages long because of the intensity of the pictures and the words to get you through that, even though they all have a video as well. So the idea with making it Monday was to have a simple pattern, simple instructions, and then you have this Facebook Live, and then it goes on to YouTube to follow that anytime you like. And you must never worry, if somebody does a Facebook Live, like now, it's always on their page, unless they deliberately delete it. And they'll only delete it if they made a right old hash of things, right? Then they'll delete it. But normally a Facebook Live will always stay on the page. So even if you're not catching me now, or you catch me halfway, you'll always see this on my page. You can either scroll down the page or just look at the top and you'll see a little line of things like it'll say about and photos and files, and then it will say videos, blah 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 blah, lots of things along the top there. If you go into videos, all of the Facebook Lives are there, very easy to find. If you're on a phone, you might look under photos. All of these devices have different ways of showing a Facebook Live, okay? So either look in videos or you may have to look in photos and it'll be in there. But I don't post that many photos, so it won't get lost. And of course, the last 3, including today, are on YouTube, which are dead easy to find. So we're going to make this. Okay, now, like I said, the instructions are very simple, and which is intentional. Keep it simple. So you've obviously got the picture, which helps you because you can see what you're aiming for and how it should look when you've finished it. You've also got the simple instructions on how to put it together. And of course this helps, doesn't it, watching. And then you've got one little pattern piece there, okay? So this square there, that's not a pattern piece. That's just to make sure when you print it that is an inch. And if that's an inch, then all the other measurements will work out, okay? If that's not an inch, you need to readjust your printer settings, because I do it exactly to the inch. So you just need to readjust. If you're in the US or anywhere else in the world, you need to set your printer to A4 printing for the UK. Because I'm in the UK, that's what I do. So making it Monday. So when you print it out, just a little tip, when you print it out, you could avoid printing this front page because that's rather ink heavy, and print from pages, I think it's 2 to 4, and then you won't get that front cover. But I quite like it in my folder looking at those. And in hindsight, I wish I put the title on it as well, like Mini Caddy. It would have helped. But anyway, there we are. So that's the pattern, so that's there for you. So, right, so I've cut all my pieces out, and I think what I'll do is I'll go straight to the side camera so we can see what that looks like. So here we go. I've got my main piece here, and I think you'll find this adorable. This is the fabric I'm going to use this evening, and it's got buzzy bees on it, which is lovely. And then, let's get the technology out of the way a bit. Then I've got my 2" by 13.5" strip, which goes approximately down the middle, but we're going to do something with that in a minute. And then I've got the 2 circles for the base inside and the base outside. Okay, you can have different colours if you want to. And I've stabilised that with a medium weight stabiliser. Okay, this is just a medium weight iron-on stabiliser. So something that I always use, it's Visaline H250. So if anybody wants to know what it is that I always use without fail, it's that. So those are the pieces, and those are the pieces, circles cut out from the pattern piece, and with any luck that should all fit beautifully. So let's move all of that out of the way. We'll pop that there. So the first thing we're going to do is, with our little strip here, it's 2 inches wide, but we actually want to make it into a 1 inch piece. So normally all I would do is actually just fold those long edges in. I'll just get my hand out the way. I'll fold those long edges in, press it, and I'm done. But tonight I thought I'd show you the little gadgets that I sometimes use to actually make it perfect and easy. Okay. Now, the first one I'll use is this little gadget here, and you'll have seen this all over the place. You know, you can get these from Amazon. They're as cheap as chips, and they're really useful, and I use them a lot, okay? And to accompany this, I know this is a bit overkill, but I always use my sasha tool. Now, a sasha tool, it's an Australian product. Let's just bring that up so you can see. It's an Australian product. You can get it in the UK, but if you Google Sasha or Sasha tools, you'll come up with where you can buy it. In the UK, it's Oh So Sweet Shop. I'll have to warn them that you might come running for some. If you're anywhere else in the world, you find your local supplier. But they come in sets. You can buy them singularly, or you can buy a whole set, and obviously I've got the whole set. So, and I like using them together. You don't have to. This is perfectly acceptable. If I'm doing a really long piece of sashing though, I do like to use the 2. I mean, this you could do by hand. So all you're going to do is fold this, to be honest, you want to get it so it's absolutely in the middle. So I'm just folding it into a little point, and I'm just going to push that in, and then I'm getting my needle. And if you buy the kit with the sasha, you actually get like a pokey tool that you can use, but you may well have one. So just run that in, and you really want it. So if you have a look inside, the fabric should go either side of that blue thing. Do you see? There's gaps either side. I mean, it's certainly not doing that at the moment. So let's just try and get that so it is. And to be honest, tell you what else you can do to make it easier. You can cut the end of this on a 45 degree, and that is easier then to put in. Trust me, I've done this a few times now. So have a look at that fabric. Can you see how it's wrapping around the blue bit of plastic in the middle? And that's what folds it over beautifully. But like I say, I do, and now normally I would, you know what, I really wouldn't bother. This is still twisted, you can see. I really wouldn't bother using both tools, but because it's interesting to see how different people do different things. Let me just try and get that to sit. It doesn't want to at all. It just doesn't want to behave itself. And actually, it all it's one of those sod's laws, because it always usually sits perfectly fine. So then once I've got an inch or two press, so we'll just do an inch or two, and you have to do that by hand. Okay, so there's no point putting that in the tool. unless you have pressed that first little piece. All right, so that's the first little piece pressed, and those raw edges are going to the middle beautifully. And this is where I bring my sasha tool in. Now, like I said, I would normally, for this size piece of fabric, I would not be doing this, okay, because it's only 13.5 inches long. It's really not worth it. But I just want you to see how I use the two tools together, okay? And the idea of the sasha tool, that it's got a curve on it, so let me show you. It's got a curve on it which allows this little mini iron to sit perfectly in that curve, and then all you're doing is pushing it along. When you get to a certain point, you might want to put pins in this to hold it in place. It's not so necessary, and you just, all I do is prepare the fabric, I suppose, with this bit and push along with that bit, and it's so easy. There's no effort involved, and you know what, I'm going to put my name down for no effort. And if you want to, you can use that bar, so you can lift that bar up and you can pull it along. It's like a little shopping trolley. You can just pull it along with that bar, look. And I just love how the two tools work together, okay? So I just thought that would be interesting for you to see that, and to see how I use those two tools together. But that's perfectly fine, okay? It's perfectly fine on its own. It's just, anyway, there we are. I won't go on about it. So that's given us the most perfect 1-inch strip, and I'll just run my iron over it again so it looks gorgeous. Okay, so let's switch the machine on. Let's switch the iron off. So now we've got our lovely piece. Now I want to put that right in the centre of my strip here. Okay, so that's going to go, I needed my bigger mat really, but never mind. So that's going to go right down the centre of that, and there's a picture in the pattern to show that. But you might say, well, how do we know the centre? Well, fold it in half, get your iron back. Even though we've switched it off, it should be still plenty warm enough. And then just fold your fabric in half and just crease it, because you're going to cover the crease. I'm just sticking my Vaseline down because it didn't look like it stuck. I'm having real troubles with this batch of Vaseline. It's just not behaving. Yeah, so just get yourself a lovely crease in the centre of that and open that up. And you can see now we've got a lovely crease. Oh, look at that, it's perfect. So what I want you to do is just to place this over the top. Now I'll tell you what you could do, if I can find it. Let's have a look. Why don't you use some quilter's tape? So I'm just going to take a little bit of that crease out because it is rather, what's the word? Ferocious? No. It's got quite a mean crease going on there. So what we could do is we could use our quilter's tape, or you could pin this and put your quilter's tape all the way along. I mean, this is just additional to what I've said in the pattern. It's just, you know, I'm just giving you another option of what you can do. And quilter's tape, you do need to get some quilter's tape. It's not expensive, okay? And once you start using it, especially for putting zips in, you'll wonder why you didn't get it before. So you can see, look, I'm just creasing the end of that tape with my fingernail, my thumbnail, and that's to get the glue underneath to stick to the fabric, and then I can just lift the backing tape off, just like paper crafting, and you've got that glue strip going down the centre, okay? So what we can do is we can place our 1-inch strip right down the centre of that. So if I get that first bit absolutely perfect, and then all I'm going to do is whiz it along. I'm not sure that was perfect, so let's do that again. Just whiz it along to the other side and try not to stretch it. I mean, it's not bias, but try not to stretch it. And then just place that down, and that has now glued that in place, ready for stitching, okay? We do still need to stitch it. This actually is a wash away tape, so it wouldn't be very much fun if we didn't sort of stitch it down. So let's bring in the sewing machine. Oh, let's bring it in, there we go. You might find that a walking foot is a good idea at this stage because we're going through multiple layers, and I always say it and hardly ever do it, but you know, live and learn. And then you're just going to do a nice top stitch. I've got this on a fairly long stitch, I've got this on 3, which is fine for top stitching. And I'm just keeping, can you see I'm keeping my hands there just to hold that in place. I haven't got any pressure on it, I'm just holding that in place. And then that's one side. And don't be tempted to do this and come down that side. Don't be tempted, because it could twist, okay? It could twist. So what I suggest you do is go back up to the top. So we started this side, so now we're going to stitch down from that side. It would be easy just to turn that and come down, but you might find that your little strip here will twist, like I said. So just hold the fabric, do a nice stitch. I must admit, I love how the dots, you know, I don't know if you can see, I might bring it up to the camera, the dots on the strip here is matches the dots on the, strawberries I think, aren't they? I'll show you. So there we go. So if I bring that up to the camera, full screen guys, can you see how the dots match the strawberries? It's amazing, isn't it? Really lovely. Right, I'm just going to trim that. There we go. Right, now you could, if you wanted, and I don't recommend it, you could join your edges together, your side edges together, and you could attach them to your circles, okay? You could do that if you want, but I really don't recommend it. It's such a faff. So the best way is to actually stitch the straight edge here onto your circle. It's far easier. And the best thing you could possibly do, and I say this in the pattern, is to snip all the way along here. My Vaseline still hasn't stuck. Is to snip all the way along your long edge. I'll do it so you can see. About 1/4 of an inch apart, but about, I don't know, let's say 1/8 of an inch along the bottom there. Okay, I'll try and do it so you can see, and then I'm going to have to twist it round to me because it's just not easy at this angle. So why we're snipping is to allow the fabric to actually work its way neatly around the circle, all right? These little splits that we're doing will open up as we go round the circle, and it makes it super easy to apply this to the circle rather than the other way round, okay? So like I say, about 1/4 of an inch apart, about 1/8 of an inch in. You don't want to go any more than 1/4 of an inch because that's your seam allowance. So just, you know, keep an eye on that. If you do go over the 1/4 of an inch, then just make your seam allowance a little bit more, or do a couple of stitches over the top to reinforce that area. So there we go, nearly done. It's a bit boring, isn't it? So I'm just trying to make sure you can still see. It's difficult to snip and look at the screen to make sure you can see. Right, there we go. Right, gone all the way along there. Slow and painful. So bring the machine in. So now, this is what I do, okay? You can please yourself whether you do this or not. Right sides together, okay? Right sides together. And you're going to start about, well, I don't know, if it's half an inch, it's fine. Let's say 3/4 of an inch. You're going to start 3/4 of an inch in. So I'm going to start stitching there, okay? I'm not going to stitch from here. I'm going to leave about half an inch, 3/4 of an inch away from that short seam, okay, short seam. And I'm going to go all the way around, and then I'm going to stop stitching about 3/4 of an inch from the end. Okay, now you're not going to be able to see very much now. I can't swap cameras, but you'll have to trust me, that's what I'm doing. So I'm starting about, like I said, little back stitch, and as we bring this straight piece of fabric round, because we've got the notches in it, it splits open. Can you see? Yep, you can see that. Look how it splits open, and it easily goes round the circle. So let's just get that stitched. And just do, if you're not confident with circles and curves, just do a little bit at a time. You won't see me rushing around. Even though I've been stitching a gazillion years, you still won't see me trying to be clever and stitch a circle and a straight together quickly. But with the notches in, and I know it's difficult for you to see, I appreciate that, you've got to trust me guys, but it's much easier to do your circles this way than try to put them in with the sides stitched, okay? So just keep moving your fabric out of the way and just come all the way around. If you're on automatic speed, put it on slow so you can take your time, okay? So we're just coming round, nearly coming back to where we started, and we're almost there. So I'll stop stitching there. So I'm about half an inch or so from the end. I haven't measured, no intentions of measuring. So look, I've stitched the base on perfectly fine. There we go, you can have a look if you like. Perfectly fine. There's no tucks. Actually, let me show you how that looks, because see how the splits open up, and it means that as we're going around, it fits beautifully to the curve, to the circle really. So we've got this gap. Okay, now this is very difficult to photograph, and in the instructions I really didn't like how I was trying to photograph this for you, but you can see that I haven't finished stitching my circle, and I've got about, I don't know, let's say 3/4 of an inch on each side that I haven't stitched yet. But what I want you to do is pretend that you have, and pinch those short edges together, okay? So if I pinch those edges together, can you see how if I stitch 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, it's going to fit the circle perfectly, okay? Absolutely perfectly. So I'm going to stitch it, but what we've got to remember, and in the instructions I tell you this, but sometimes it's clearer when I actually show you. So when we stitch this, I'm going to stitch about 1.5 inches, and then I'm going to stop, okay? When I stitch this side, I'm going to stitch about, I don't know, let's say, if I measure it, let's say it's about 4.5 inches. I'm going to stop stitching there. And the reason for that is we still need a turning gap, okay? So on this one, I've pinched my 2 edges together. Look, you can see what that looks like. That's how it looks. If I pinch those together and stitch 1/4 of an inch, it'll be absolute perfection. Fold your circle in half, bring your raw edges together, and stitch 1/4 of an inch. But I'm only going to stitch about 1.5 inches up from the base, okay? So that's all I'm going to do, and the reason for that is because I need a turning gap in my side here. So now obviously we've still got that gap. There's a little gappage going on there, guys. Look in there. So just push your seam over to one side and finish stitching. So go over, do a couple of stitches over what you've just done, you know, around your circle, and then finish off where you started. And just, you can backstitch, or you could just go over the stitches. I've caught a wee bit, I don't think it's going to matter, but you're just going over the stitches where you stopped. You're going to go over your seam, fold it to one side, and then go over the stitches where you started, and that's all there is to it. So that's your base, or inside, outside, whichever way you like. So we're going to do exactly the same with this circle. So right sides together, and you're going to start about 3/4 of an inch from the end of your straight bit, okay, not the circle. So let's just whiz around that. And when I say whiz, you're going to take your time. Split those cuts that we made so they fit around that circle beautifully. So just take your time again. I know you won't be able to see very well, but all I'm doing is stitching, nothing exciting. All I'm doing is making sure that my raw edges are pretty much together, just come round. And if you do go off course a little bit, don't worry, because the next one you do will be brilliant. Oh, my machine doesn't sound good. I wonder what, if I've caught a thread somewhere. I'll have a look at that in a second. I think I might have caught a thread. So this machine is so reliable, it's unusual when something goes wrong with it. Doesn't worry me though. Look, it's not stitching, do you see? It's not stitching back there. So I don't know why. We'll have a look. See if something is caught up in the bobbin. Let's see if I can get it out. Let's try. Hold on, bear with. Let's see if we can get it out. There we go. I think, yeah, look, I think there was a few knots. That's good, that's fine. It's fine. We're okay. We're sorted. So, and of course, like some machines, this has to be threaded a certain way. It's not temperamental by any means, but like any machine, it has to be a certain way. So bring the threads up. Just make them a little bit smaller. I didn't think that was right. I could hear it clonking away. So let's see if it wants to play now. If it doesn't want to play, we'll be stuck, won't we? So straight edge to circle again. Just carry on like nothing happened. Nothing to see. Walk on. So we're just coming back nearly to where we started. Keep moving your fabric out of the way. Keep readjusting if you need to. Like I say, you won't see me rushing. Just take your time. But it's easier to have your straight edge on the top and your circle underneath. Okay, if you always remember that, you won't go far wrong. So let's stop there. So it has stitched it this time. So again, we had the same as what we had before, where we've got that gap. Stitched all the way around, beautiful. So all I'm going to do is pinch my edges together. Those two are going to be pinched together. And I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. My turning gap, it finishes around about here. So I'm going to come down to about just near where the little spotty fabric is. My faux binding, because it really is faux binding. And actually what I want to make sure is that when I stitch it, my binding is actually sitting absolutely on top of each other. And I don't mind if it's a little bit out the other end. So I'm just going to put a clip there just to make sure, because we want that fairly neat. So I'm pinching those edges together. I'm going to do my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to come up just sort of in the middle, I think, of the binding, the faux binding. Actually, I might just go beyond. No, just stick to the plan, stick to the plan. So I've come up to about there, look, so I've got a gap there, do you see? Now, we don't need to snip this circle because I've snipped my straight fabric and that will allow it to sit nicely. So all I'm going to do is turn this through. Make sure you've done a back stitch. Now, because this is reversible, excuse me, you really need to do a ladder stitch to close this up, okay? And if you haven't done a ladder stitch before, I'll do that. There's no worries here. We don't fret about stuff here. Somebody said to me last week that I talk too much. Can't believe that. Oh, I need to stitch that. Look. Oh, I didn't stitch my gap closed, did I? Nobody said. Nobody said. Right, let's look. See that? Do you remember we did the pinch the seam, but I didn't close my gap? Right, so we'll just stick that under there. So do remember to do that, guys. We don't worry about stuff like that. So it's closed now. So just push your circle out. Now, you'll find it quite difficult to iron this circle, all right? So just pop your fingers on the inside and use the heat of your hand in your other hand. So my right hand, my finger is pushing that seam out, and my left hand is kind of finger pressing it. So it gives me a fairly decent finish, okay? If you've got a tailor's ham, you might try with that. It's too fiddly, and it's too small to worry about, to be perfectly honest. But look, a finger press, and we're all right. So you might want to do that for the other side. Now one of these is going to go to the inside, okay? So we're not going to fuss too much. In fact, I'm going to put that to the inside. So in fact, I might just leave it like that. I'll do the ladder stitch in just a sec. But what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to make sure that my seam is lovely and pressed. So let's bring the iron up. And my little mini mat. I just want to press my turning gap. So I'm turning in 1/4 of an inch either side. And this is easier to do this before you turn through. So can you see? There's my turning gap, but I've now pushed the seams to the inside. It's not perfect by any means, but in fact, it's rubbish really, look. But at least my binding matches, it meets up, which is great. So it just gives you a head start by just pressing those seams into the middle. Yes, Julie, they do work on their own, the Sasha tools. It's just you've got to understand that I've found ways that suit me. That doesn't mean to say that that's the right way or the wrong way. But that's just what I do. And I think sometimes we're allowed to do what we want to do. Right, so let's just, I'm sorry, I'm faffing. So I want to just turn that one to the inside. So we've got the, so I've got the ladder stitch part to show you. That's why I did that. And all you're doing is folding it on itself, okay? And what you're aiming for is half of the binding to show on the front, and half the binding to show on the back, okay? If you look at the one that I made on Saturday, you can see you've got half the binding one side and half the binding the other, okay? And this is where you can press. Now if you've got a mini iron like me, oh my gosh, this is such the best time to use it. And try to get that absolutely as best as you possibly can, because once you've pressed it and messed about with it, it's kind of written in stone. So all I do is kind of just put my iron in there. So don't forget, that's my turning gap. And give it a really nice hot press, okay? No need to go mad, it is just a mini caddy. Oh, just give it a nice whiz. And because the iron is so hot, that's ironing the outside as well as the inside. And just take your time on that. You know, it's the one thing that I absolutely love is a well finished ironed product, whatever you've made. Okay, so that's our mini caddy made. However, we need to do that ladder stitch there. Okay, so like I said to you just a moment ago, it's not the most brilliant of pressing that I've done there. I wouldn't mind doing a little bit of a better job, but for the sake of 5 minutes, let's just turn that in, because you really want that seam to be. Now don't do this. Don't do as I do. Right, that's a bit better, okay, that's a bit better. It's not 100%. I have this feeling that I'll show you a ladder stitch and I'm going to unpick it later. Or I might put it to the inside. And that's the thing, if you make a bit of a hash of it, for goodness sake, put it to the inside and don't bother turning it through. Life's too short. I was just trying to find a finer needle, but I don't have one. So let's take some thread out of the machine. Single thread is fine, don't double it up, there's no need. We have to remind ourselves that it is only a mini caddy, it's not something that's going to win awards. The other thing is, of course, you could make some of these for Christmas. There's plenty of time. Yeah, so a little knot on the end. Okay, I know you can't see it very well, but there's a little knot on the end. Now that knot goes through the fold of your fabric. Okay, so I want you to have a look. So I've pressed it as best I can. So I haven't got any raw edges showing. I've just got the folds of the seam, thereabouts. Not brilliant. Anyway, so I'm putting my needle up through the fabric and through the fold. Okay. Can you see that? So I'm coming out on the fold of the fabric, and my knot will go in there, right? So you can't see my knot now. Hurrah. So all I'm going to do, and a ladder stitch is exactly what it says on the tin. You make a ladder with stitches. And I wish I'd taken a bit more time with that, but never mind, I'm going to shut up moaning about it now. So look, there's my gap. Can you see it? So I'm coming through to the other side. So my thread is coming over on the top. So now I'm coming to the bottom fold here, and I'm just running my needle along the fold. Okay? And you'll do perhaps tiny stitches. I'm just going to do big stitches. I'm just going to move so you can see a bit better. So my thread is now on the bottom fold. So now I'm going to go across. I'm jumping across, and I'm running my needle along the fold of the fabric, and I'm just, so can you see we're making a ladder? So my thread is now on the top, so I'm jumping across to the bottom, and I'm running my needle along that fold. Okay, like I said, you'll do little stitches. If you do a slip stitch, you'll see it, but if you do a ladder stitch, you won't. So can you see we're making a ladder stitch? And you don't need to tighten this up yet, so don't worry. So I'm jumping across to the other side, running my needle along the fold, coming out, jumping across the other side, needle along the fold. Difficult at this angle, I have to say. Running the needle along the fold, and you're just jumping from one side to the other, but the main part of the stitch is going in the fold. You can't see that, it's totally invisible, but you can see the stitches. Look, you can see how that looks. And so you're on the top, so you're coming across to the bottom, and to be perfectly honest, if you want to do a slip stitch, you do a slip stitch. Okay, I'm not going to tell you off. If you want to glue it, glue it. I'm not going to tell you off. If you want to put it under the machine and just machine it, I'm not going to tell you off. But I like to show you the proper way, and then you can got the choice. And like I say, you'll probably do a lot much neater job than me, because I've got this right mid-air. This is the sort of thing you could sit in front of the TV and do. And actually, it doesn't take a minute. It's just because the way I'm doing it is taking longer. That's my excuse. Can you see? Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw this out. I'll finish this off. I'll do that now, but I'll do it so it's more comfortable for me. But all you're going to do is draw that thread up. So I hold this and pull this thread. And be gentle, because you've only got one strand of thread here. Not too tight. But there you go. Almost perfection. So let me just finish this off. Let's go back to the front, and I'll finish this off at a better angle for me. Because that was up there. So I hope you enjoyed that little tutorial on a mini caddy, and to be perfectly honest, you've got plenty of time to make half a dozen of these before Christmas, and you could put your nuts in here, your whole nuts, your not your whole nuts, I'm thinking of chocolate, your hazelnuts, your walnuts, all that sort of thing. Put a few mince pies in there and give them away as a gift. That would be nice. I wouldn't say no. In fact, I do like a bit of a mince pie. I'm a bit of a mince pie fan. Yep, we've had some lovely gifts over the last few days. By golly, my cupboards are bulging. So I'm just coming to the end of that little tiny piece that I wanted to do, only because I was coming up to the binding and I wanted that to look absolutely gorgeous, which it does. I'll show you. But what I want to do is just finish that off nicely. So I've drawn all the threads up and I'm taking my needle to the side of the seam, and I'm just going to do a couple of little back stitches there just to secure my thread. And you hardly notice it. And like I say, please remember this is just a mini caddy. It's not something that's going to go to the Queen. Well, not that I'm aware of. Anyway, so that is your little mini caddy. Now, what do you think? It's lovely, isn't it? What a lovely fabric that is. I love that. Like, you could fill that with sweets. Oh, I know. Abigail made me some, and Adrian, she made us some cookies and some brownies. And why not bake some cookies or brownies for maybe 1 or 2 people near you that don't have anybody this Christmas, and pop it in one of these. And I bet anything you like, they will keep that and treasure that. And because it's made out of fabric, it'll always be there, won't it? And it'll always perhaps come out at Christmas, maybe. Make it in Christmas fabric, of course. So there we are. So that's it. That is our mini caddy. So have a lovely time, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Yeah, so take care and stay safe, everybody. Stay safe. Bye-bye.